Have you ever wondered what would happen if we broke the transfer portal? Seeing stars like Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams entering the portal year in and year out, consistently changing the landscape of college football. Well, that is exactly what we're going to do today. Some science! We're going to be experimenting here on Dynasty Mode and EA College Football 26, fiddling around with some of these sliders relating to the transfer portal, pushing them all the way up to the max, trying to see how much chaos we can get in a 5-year simulation. Doesn't really matter which team I'm going to pick since we're going to keep everything on auto, but I like the blue backdrop of Georgia State, so I guess we're going to pick them. Let's push these sliders all the way up. Max transfers per team will be on 30. User and CPU player transfer chance will be at 100. So that means we're going to have as many players inside of the portal as possible. Let's start by simulating to the end of the first season where the rosters are entirely normal. Georgia beats Oklahoma in the national championship, while Jeremiah Smith wins the Heisman Trophy with a ridiculous season. Shout out Kansas legend Moody Rubin and Broncos legend Chris Brazzell finishing super highly in the receiving stats. I love seeing my children succeed. Look at all these players transferring from Georgia State. This looks not fun. And this is the case for pretty much every team across the country. This is not just an US exclusive thing. So let's take a look at our first offseason's transfer portal. I'm hoping to see some big names here. I'm hoping to see some chaos. So we ended up with a few 5 stars headlined by Arch Manning along with Colin Simmons and Jordan Seaton. I've seen some weirder 5 stars enter the portal in the past. We go up to 221 in terms of 4 stars and over 3,200 players overall. That's definitely the most I've seen enter the portal in all of my simulations. Where did all the top guys end up going? Arch Manning, whenever he enters the portal, it seems like he always goes to Alabama. This time, no exception. Not only does Texas lose him, but they lose Colin Simmons to their number 1 rival, Oklahoma. Hug a Longhorn fan because they need it. Jordan Seaton also ends up at Alabama. Isaac Brown to Indiana. That's a really fun addition for the Hoosiers. Ahmad Hardy to Virginia Tech. Why can't we get that in our series? No scholarships for Devin Dampierre. That's one of the issues with the portal I've noticed in this game. Too many good players don't get enough interest. Noah Fafita to Arizona State. That's nasty. Rocco Becht to Alabama. He will be a backup. Dante Moore to Michigan, where I believe he was once committed at a point. Keelan Russell going from Alabama to LSU. I mean, I guess that'll happen with Alabama getting Arch Manning, while Tavian St. Clair, another one of the 5 stars of this class, goes to Penn State. So let's simulate through 2026. Now that we've got quite a bit of movement, a handful of the nation's top players on the move. I feel like the sliders, though, they don't really lead to more or less 5-star players transferring. Keldrick Falk, for instance, always transfers away from Auburn. This time he ended up sticking around. It looks like we've had chaos in the first season. What even is this top 25? Duke at 8, Minnesota at 9, Virginia Tech at 11, Alabama at 14. Where is Oregon? The Ducks aren't even on the list. Ohio State's at 23. What happened in the first season? Jaden Baugh wins the Heisman, so our first Heisman with the portal does not go to a player who entered the portal. Top 25, still pretty chaotic. Nebraska at 5, Pitt at 6, Duke at 11. So certainly some surprises. Georgia Southern makes the playoff. That would be pretty nuts. I noticed that both Georgia Southern and Tulane made it. There was nobody from the Big 12 who made the playoff. What a bad look as a conference to end up with nobody. Arizona State beats Texas Tech in the conference championship again. The Big 12 was clearly banking on Texas Tech winning that game, but they lost, and they did not end up making it. Didn't Jaden Baugh win the Heisman? We're being lied to. Now they're saying it's Julian Sayin. None of the players on this list, though, transferred away to new schools, which I find interesting. All 5 of them stick in their current homes. We had some crazy seasons, though. 56 touchdowns for Sayin, and he still has potentially multiple playoff games to go. Dante Dowdell, he entered the portal. 4 schools in 4 years for Dowdell, who finishes at Mississippi State. Bo Jackson enters the portal at New Mexico State. C.J. Baxter at the University of Miami. Through the air, none of these guys, at least that I know of, entered the portal. So mostly, at least in terms of the notable names, all staying at their current schools. Armando Blunt had 17.5 sacks. That led the country. I had a sim when I was doing my testing for my sliders where he ended up with 35. Could not believe my eyes. That was wild. Let's simulate to the end of the year who wins the national championship. It is Ohio State. So I guess Julian saying is your deserving Heisman winner over Jaden Baugh as they defeat Florida. This team is unfair. Jeremiah Smith is a 99 overall. Loaded roster. They got Bryson Washington from the portal. They got Cedric Alexander from the portal. Two really good running backs. I'm scared to see some of these numbers. 66 touchdowns and 6,400 yards. That is insane. How? I get they got some extra games, but that is wild. 1,800 yards for Jeremiah Smith, 1,400 for Innis, 1,200 for Carnell Tate. Tight end almost had 1,000. The offensive line was not so good. The left tackle allowed 19 sacks. But holy hell, this team must be absolutely broken. We've got another offseason upcoming and another group of players leaving, not just for Georgia State, but all across the country. Now, I've noticed that the first offseason is always the busiest in terms of the portal, so we're not going to have as large of quantity, but hopefully we still end up with a lot of players here. Only one 5-star, Darian Mensah, the quarterback at Duke. In terms of the 4 stars, only going down to 137. Yeah, you can notice the difference from last season to this year. I was surprised to see the amount of lower-ranked players. There were not that many less guys across the country, 2,800 players total. I guess there's just less good players, less 4 stars, less 5 stars entering. And for what it's worth, these are the exact same sliders as last year. It's just that after the first season, it seems like there's less chaos within the portal. Let's see where all the top players ended up going, though, across the nation. We'll start with Darian Mensah, who's going to Texas. So the Longhorns get some good news after last season's disaster, losing Manning and Simmons. Dante Moore is going nowhere, I guess, and neither is Justin Scott. Michigan lost 2 of their top guys to no school, while Eli Holstein does not sign anywhere. Bryce Underwood is going to Clemson, another loss for Michigan. Deuce Knight will be the quarterback at Oregon. A lot of talented QBs in this class, some of whom not signing anywhere. Great job, EA. Matt Chadwick to Indiana, Julian Lewis to Arizona State. Alabama gets Austin Carlisle. Austin Mack going nowhere. Another Washington Husky disaster class. Love to see it. All right, now we're into 2027, the 3rd season of the experiment. Top 25 is still very much all over the place. Where are the Ducks? What happened? What a colossal fall for Oregon to not be ranked this quickly. 2 years later, let's see who the Heisman frontrunners would be and how many of them have transferred. Darian Mensah's in a new school, and that's it. The other 4 guys have stayed put, interestingly enough. Austin Simmons of Ole Miss wins the Heisman, another guy who did not enter the portal, but had a great season this year with the Rebels, as we're going to the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl to face off against Maryland. Let's take a look at what happened here in the 2027 season. We'll start with the top 25. What I find most interesting is that Buffalo went 13-0. Why does it say they're ranked number 12? They're clearly not 12th. But okay. They do make the playoff, and I'm really curious to see how they end up performing. I haven't seen many undefeated teams in the group of 5, and I'm fascinated to see that they are ranked that low. Not that it's wrong, I just find it kind of interesting. Did Austin Simmons not actually win the Heisman? The game got it wrong again. Apparently now it's Kenny Minchey. Number of transfers on this list, though. C.J. Carr at LSU. Bryce Baker at Buffalo. Clearly he's the reason for their turnaround. And then Bryce Underwood, who is at Clemson. I don't think I've seen Underwood enter the portal too often so far in college football 26. So maybe the sliders ultimately pushed him to go in, ultimately screwing over Michigan, who lost both of their quarterbacks this offseason. Let's take a look at, oh my God, Texas got blasted 34-0 against Georgia. Buffalo gave Ole Miss a run for their money in the first round, but the Heisman winner, Austin Simmons, was a little bit too much for them. I want to look at some of these stats again. I want to see how crazy they are. 52 touchdowns for Kenny Minchey. He kind of did deserve it over Austin Simmons, if we're being completely honest. I'm curious to see how much stats are going to change for many of the top guys on many of the top teams now that a lot of them are going to be playing 15, 16 games a year with the added playoff. I don't think we're going to see guys getting 66 touchdowns consistently, but still. Peyton Lewis second. Michigan got him in the portal, replacing Jordan Marshall, who leaves Michigan. He finished 4th with Arizona State. Georgia's Landon Roldan leads in receiving. A 6-foot elusive route runner from Georgia who's white. Welcome back, Ladd McConkey. As far as I'm aware, he is not someone that Georgia got in the portal. Rather, Kirby just has a type, along with any player who cannot physically drive. That's also his type. 22 sacks, by the way, for Bryce Davis. That is a lot. Let's move into our next offseason, the 2027 transfer portal. I'm curious to see how many less or more players we have compared to last season. In terms of the 5 stars, we do not have any, which is interesting. The top player here is Matthew Leo Ione, a quarterback transfer from Washington. 117 4 stars total, so a little bit less than last year, and around 2,500 players. So it is smaller than last season's crop. Not that much smaller, but still noticeable. A couple hundred less guys in the portal. I guess more players are choosing to be loyal. Matthew Leo Ione goes to Ohio State. Gio Lopez to Florida, I assume replacing DJ Lagway. Jericho Johnson goes in the portal from Oregon to go to Oregon. Honestly, I kind of like seeing players go back because that does happen occasionally. That is pretty realistic. Keelan Russell to Colorado. He transfers once again. Aaron Nolan seems to enter the portal just about every year. He's going to Tennessee, which is probably the best decision that he can make because Tennessee's playbook in this game is absolutely cracked. Top 25 feels more normal than we've gotten in the past. And then in terms of the preseason Heisman lists, these are largely now going to be filled out by current freshmen. Jaron Kiwi Sagapuluete is currently in first. Dallas Wilson is in second. Dallas Wilson is the only player here who would not have entered the transfer portal. Everybody else in that top 5 did. Talon Taylor of Georgia wins the Heisman. I do not believe they would have gotten him from the portal. So every Heisman so far has only been at one school. Gio Lopez portaled. Didn't it just say he went to Florida? How is he at Auburn? Am I being crazy? I saw him at Florida this offseason 2 minutes ago. Matthew Leo Ione goes to Ohio State. Gio Lopez to Florida, I assume replacing DJ Lagway. I mean, I guess our goal was to break the transfer portal, and, well, it clearly is broken. That's one way to describe it. Does that say Temple with 4 losses is in the playoff? Why? With all due respect, 4-loss Temple in the playoffs might be the most egregious thing I've ever seen. All right, let's simulate to the end of the year. Another national championship for Ohio State. A lot of close games, and then USC beating Temple 48-3. Honestly, I'm surprised the Owls even got a field goal. How did they get in? Let's take a look at some more broken stats. Ohio State's quarterback, Matthew Leo Ione, who they did get in the transfer portal, nearly at the Triple Crown. I thought he was going to lead in interceptions as well, but Ethan Washington had 25. Still, 6,400 yards and 57 touchdowns is just wild. Gerard Pringle, who was also just acquired through the portal, leads in yards, while we have a 30-touchdown scorer on the ground. And then through the air, oh my God! Are those real numbers? How did Taylor win the Heisman over this guy? I get he played an extra 4 games, but still, who is this? Titus Alomes. Does that say 348 yards? What? In a playoff game. 22 catches for 350 yards. How is that possible? That's like what Jackson Smith and Jigba did in the Rose Bowl, but like on a whole nother level. All right, let's go through another offseason. We only have one 5-star, and it's not a real player. Taquan Talbot, who I believe entered the portal last year. Deuce Knight is in here, though. He is the 2nd-ranked player in the portal. I think he will be joining his 4th separate school. He has been all over the map, seemingly. Keelan Russell was apparently at Ohio State last year, I guess as the backup. This is at least his 4th school, maybe his 5th. So let's take a look at some of the notable results. The 5-star kid, Talbot, who was at Michigan last year, his 3rd school, and that will be LSU. Good get there for the Tigers. Deuce Knight is going to Indiana. The Hoosiers have gotten some good players in the portal. Emmanuel Shakir, the starting quarterback at the national champion Ohio State, is going to Penn State, while Keelan Russell is going nowhere. I guess Ohio State could have kept him with their starting quarterback ahead of him also entering the portal. The transfer portal logic in this game is not the best, which I guess shouldn't really be a surprise because it's so complicated, but still, a lot of problems. Here is your list of Heisman candidates for 2029. Pretty much all of these guys, I think, were acquired in the portal. Treston McMillan, I believe, is the younger brother of Teteroa McMillan. I'm not 100% sure, but connecting the dots, it would make sense. Dustin Foster of Tennessee wins the Heisman, another white receiver performing quite well. It seems to be something that College Football 26 enjoys. We have the Georgia quarterback at second. He has been their starter for 3 years since he was a true freshman. Loyalty in this game, something that you will not find super often. No redshirt seniors on that list, so that means no real players amongst the top 5 finalists for the Heisman Trophy, even though the preseason list had all 5 real players. 13-0 for Indiana with Deuce Knight. A great season for the Hoosiers. And overall, a great sim for Indiana. They got some good players. They got Isaac Brown earlier, had some strong seasons with him. And now Deuce Knight leads them to the #1 seed in the playoff. We'll see if they end up getting the job done or if it'll be somebody else. Ohio State's won the title twice. I don't think they were in there. I guess that's what happens when you lose your starting quarterback to a rival and your backup quarterback to McDonald's. So ultimately, our national champion this season is LSU. They got the #1 player in the portal, Taquan Talbot, and now they win the whole thing, beating Washington. Thank goodness. If Washington won, you would not hear from me for about a week. So the Tigers get the job done. The 7th seed versus the 8th seed. None of the super good teams were all that impressive, including Indiana, who led up 54 in their playoff game. I guess Deuce Knight could only do so much considering their defense dropped a deuce on the field. In terms of the stats, 52-7 touchdown to interception ratio for Colt Sparks. There were some even better ones here. The offensive stats in this game are just kind of crazy. Too many elite quarterbacks. The rushing stats are out of control. The amount of guys I've seen with like 30 touchdown seasons. I get Ashton Genty did it last year, but Ashton Genty is not normal. That's not something that comes around every season. Through the air, 2,087 yards for Dustin Foster in 13 games, 160 yards per game. Whoa, this guy is good. They clearly got the Heisman right. Averaging, 12 catches a game for 160 yards. Didn't have anything above 300, but only 3 games over 200. Only. He even had a game with 17 catches. Didn't score, which is kind of impressive. They also scored 80 in a game. With the amount of offense and the amount of high stats I've seen in this game, my bold prediction is that at some point in one of my videos or one of my series, we're going to see a team in the sim score 100 in a game. I feel like it's going to happen. So here are your national championships through the 5 seasons. Kenny Dillingham now at LSU, apparently. But we alternated between Georgia and Ohio State for the first 4. And then LSU gets the job done at the end. None of the 5 Heisman Trophy winners entered the portal at all during their careers, so I guess the key is to stay loyal. In terms of the most notable redshirt seniors, though, all these guys pretty much did enter the portal for the most part, showing the amount of movement we have in college football nowadays. All of these top quarterbacks were in the portal at least once. For many of them, like Deuce Knight and Keelan Russell, often more than once. So that is going to wrap up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button for more College Football 26 content. Over the next couple of days, we've got a Virginia Tech upload. We'll be playing our first games of the season, along with our intro to the NCAA Next Up, where we're going to look at all of the rosters and all of the lore. I know you guys have been wanting to see some of the backstories for these players and teams, given that we are in the future. So I hope everyone enjoyed. Again, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Peace out.